Okay. Hi everyone, welcome, good evening. The topic of today is Polkadot Parachain Netflows. And what I mean by that is that, first let me get the microphone in order. So do we have everything in order here? Yes, okay. So what we do want to look at is you have several parachains in Polkadot and the DOT token is flowing between those parachains. And the question I'm interested in is, where is DOT flowing to? From which parachain to which parachain is it going? So this is sort of a follow-up to yesterday's live stream. And hi, by the way, my name is Alice and Bob. Feel free to post a message in chat if you want to participate. You can post anything in chat and I will try to react and integrate it in the show. So yesterday we were looking at the biggest volume accounts in Polkadot, and basically we were just looking at all the transfers that were happening between accounts, and we're just looking at where were the most tokens flowing through. And when you look at the accounts where the most tokens flow through, what you find is centralized exchange accounts, very big staking accounts that usually belong to centralized exchanges, and then whale accounts. But what I'm interested in now is actually parachains. I want to look at parachains and how value is flowing between parachains. And when I do a live session like this, it's very tangible. It's something, it's the procedures I have developed and how I look at the chain, the tools that I'm using, my own tools that I developed, but also I rely on many other tools. So what we're going to do today is to, in the first step, make a list of all the parachain accounts that we are interested in. So you will see how can you find the parachain accounts. You will learn a little bit about sovereign accounts, which is interesting to know always. And once we have that list, we will query the Polkalytics database. So this is a database that I've created, a data warehouse, that contains all Polkadot blocks, extrinsics, and most of the events already. And we will query the database and get a table of all transfers that ever happened between parachains. Or let's say inflows and outflows of parachains. Let's look at this. And once we have those net flows, so if you put inflows and outflows together, you basically get net flows. So once we have those net flows together, we basically know when is value flowing into a parachain, when is value flowing out of a parachain. And the end result of today would be a very nice graph. It would be a graphic, a chart where you see number go up, number go down, and maybe have a comparison between different parachains. I think that's it for today. This is what we're going to look at. So I'm very excited about this. Welcome everyone who is in the chat. I see 3 concurrent viewers right now, so I'm doing this for you. Of course, I'm also doing it for myself, but we're here to have fun. Feel free to post anything in the comments. Okay. And since we want to give everyone a chance who will be joining later in this evening, let's map out the steps. So our goal for today is find all net flows of DOT between parachains. So, and the first step is make a list of all parachain accounts. And the second step is to find all in and outflows of those accounts, and then make a nice graphic. This is our goal for today. As always, it is possible that we might encounter some problems. Maybe it won't work out today, but we will see. So, but this is the goal for today. Okay, so I'm going to keep this here, and how do we do this? Yeah, let's just keep it here on the side. I make it a little bit smaller, and we keep it visible for everyone who is joining the show here. Zoop. Okay, so first step, make a list of all Parachain accounts. So, and this is fairly easy. What we do is we go to polkadot.subscan.io. I will be starting with Polkadot because in the last 2 years, I've been mostly researching Kusama, and I've developed a growing interest in Polkadot also. I think it is a nice side project of Kusama, and so I would like to give it also some attention. Yeah, so let's look at Subscan here. This is polkadot.subscan.io, and there is the Parachain menu here, Parachain. And what I have here is a list of all the Parachains. So, and oftentimes when you do work with data, you do all kinds of automated stuff, and sometimes you do manual stuff. And my feeling is today we're going to do manual stuff. Let's look at the XCM dashboard first. Let's look at the Parachains and how many XCM they are holding. So these are the Parachains that are active in XCM activity, and maybe we're going to start with these ones today. How do we do this? Maybe we hold this thing, and yeah, I'm going to open a tab for each of those. So we're starting with interlay, parallel, Bifrost. You know, sometimes you would like to have everything automated, but sometimes also it just makes sense to do some kind of manual work. So when you're a data person, you always have to look at what is the fastest thing. And sometimes the fastest thing is to choose automation, for example, when you have a lot of data. And sometimes the fastest thing is just to open 20 tabs and do the work. Okay. So I'm going to have a spreadsheet here, and okay, so let's start with what accounts associated with a parachain. So for example, here we have the Akala parachain, and you see all kinds of accounts here. So the first account is the owner. This is basically the account that created the para ID. Then you have a crowd loan fund. So this is if there was a crowd loan associated with the parachain, this is the crowd loan fund. And then we have the sovereign account of Polkadot. And what is this sovereign account, Akala? Okay, this is on the Akala side. But so the sovereign account of Polkadot, what is it? Basically, every parachain has its own account on the Polkadot network, and it's called the sovereign account. It's called the sovereign account because it is in a sovereign control of the parachain. So whoever governs the parachain, this could be sudo, this could be the council, this could be democracy. Whoever governs the parachain governs the sovereign account of the parachain. And so the interesting thing is, so we're looking at the sovereign account of Akala now. You can see a million dot here, 1.5 million dot, almost 1.6 million dot. So these 1.6 million dot, $10 million, is the amount of dot that is sitting in the parachain. So it is sitting in the sovereign account of Akala, and basically once it sits in the sovereign account of Akala, the Akala runtime, the Akala blockchain can now say, this is within my space, and it's basically bridged, or it's channeled to the Akala chain. But in reality, it will always just be sitting in the sovereign account. But this is sort of the consensus, that once it sits in a sovereign account, now Akala can claim it is within the parachain and it got channeled to Akala. And this is the same case for every parachain network. Okay, one interesting thing here is this sovereign account is active on multiple networks. Oh yeah, of course, because there might be channels to different networks. Okay, not so relevant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to note down all the accounts that are associated as sovereign accounts. So this is the chain, and this is the address. And we're making a short list of Akala and the addresses. Okay, so this is Akala. Maybe the pair ID. I'm not sure if it is relevant, but let's keep it. So, okay, we have this one. Okay, Moonbeam sovereign account. Moonbeam, yeah, so this is a little bit boring for the next few minutes, but you know, that's the way it is. How was your week? I hope you had a good week. My week was fairly mixed. I think in the job it works fairly well right now, so everything that has to do with Magata, that has to do with Polkalytics, it's working out fairly nicely. It's a lit entry. Privately, it's so la, it works out, but I won't bother you with that because it is none of your concern. So this is Affinity, sovereign account of Affinity. Not a funny thing is because I'm usually more concerned with Kusama right now because this is where all my business development is happening. I'm sometimes confused about the parachains that are on Polkadot because my attention is not always there. Okay, but I know Centrifuge. So we have Centrifuge. And so this is the preparatory work. Once we have all of those addresses, we throw them into Polkalytics, and it will just give us all of the history. It will just give us all of the history. Ooh, what is this? I forgot to pay attention. Crust is this. So this is crust, this is the address, and this is 2008. And you might notice something very interesting here. All of those parachains are beginning with a similar address. It's different, but the first few characters are similar. So internally they're represented, the public key is represented, I think, with a lot of zeros initially. And then sort of the ID. Okay, so this is Clava, and this is 2002, Clava. I'm just glad we're doing Polkadot today because it has far less parachains that are active in XCM than we have in Kusama. 2037, and this is unique, 2037. And you see we're almost done. We have 4 more to go, or 5 more to go. Okay, so this is Davinia, and this is the sovereign account of Davinia. Whoops, the account was not found. Sometimes weird stuff is happening. Sovereign account on Polkadot. Davinia 2046. Davinia Ching 2046. I think this is right. Okay, Equilibrium 2011. Equilibrium Ching 2011. 3 more to go, and then this, I guess this was the most boring part of the evening. Hydra DX. Yeah, and then we can see Hydra DX, how value is flowing between those. Oops, this is wrong. 2034. Okay. Fala network. Actually, this should be more like a cooking show where I said, oh, and I already have this prepared for you. But that's not the case. Okay, we have StateMine. Yeah, StateMine should be interesting. StateMine is a common good chain. So it has the ID 1000. StateMine. Is it StateMint? Of course. It has to be StateMint. 1000. And I think we're done. Are we done? No, there are a few more. A star. Yeah, maybe I should have prepared this. Another thing is maybe you can look at the Polkalytics.io website and tell me what you think about it. So while I gather those numbers, Polkalytics.io, I'm going to put it in chat. You can also drop me a hello in chat if you're here. Tell me what you would be interested to see today, if you're in the right course. So this is 2030 and it's Bifrost. Bifrost, you know, we need more of those lists of just addresses so that everyone can check them out. And then we have Parallel. Parallel. Haven't heard from them in a while. 2012. Okay. almost done. Interlay, yeah, of course, Interlay. Interlay made a very big move yesterday. So it's not yet on Interlay, but it's on Kintsugi. They are launching a DeFi hub, a Bitcoin DeFi hub. So if you haven't seen that, you should definitely check that out. And these are all the addresses. Okay, so we have completed the first step here. Make a list of all Parachain accounts. And now we're going to look at all the inflows and outflows. Hey, hey Omar, hi. Okay, so we have a list of those accounts. And now we're going to ask Polkalytics to sum up all the inflows and outflows. But it would be boring if we just have the sum, because then we would just say, give me all the inflows and outflows that ever happened and bring it down to a single point in time. But actually we would like to have to know how much is in the account from day to day. We want to be able to see the development over time and maybe spot some trends. So to do this, we actually need to aggregate the data on a day-by-day basis. Usually you would go about this in two different ways. You could go about this in two different ways. You could go and check out, let's say, pick one block every day and then ask an archive node of the chain directly and say, tell me please, what is the amount of tokens on the exchange or on that parachain on that day? And you could basically ask it for every day. This is approach number one. Approach number two is, if you have all the historical data, which we have, I mean, we have to check it out, but this is sort of an intermediary step now. We can look at all the flows that ever happened and just add them up day by day by day. Both of these will work. We could aggregate them by date, but let's first take a look and let's first ask, how is value flowing into and out of those chains? And so we can take any chain. It's likely that Akala will be a good choice because we know there's a lot of XCM activity happening, so we will get representative data. And let's check just exactly what is happening if there is money flowing in and out of the exchange. Okay, so we have the Akala chain, we have the sovereign account. So let's see what is actually happening on the sovereign account. Okay, you see value flowing in. We can see XCM transfers. And we can see a lot of transfers. That's interesting. Okay, I guess transfers is the interesting tab here because we see 57,000 of those transfers. But we only see value flowing in. Is that the case because there's only value flowing in, or are outflows differently represented? Okay, that's the first interesting question, is why do we only see inflows? It might be that subflow is showing this in a different way. I have a strong suspicion that subflow is showing this in a different way. Direction all. Yeah, okay. Okay, let's take a look first. Let's go depth first and see how value is flowing here. So let's look at a single extrinsic. What is a user doing to send money to Akala? Okay, and what you see here is this is the extrinsic being called, or the call being executed. So this is an XCM call, reserve transfer assets. Someone is calling reserve transfer assets, and then those tokens are being transferred into the sovereign account of the Parachain. So let's look at the events. We have some withdraw, we have a transfer event, balances transfer. This is relevant because it means we can just look at all the balances transfer events. And we have been looking at balances transfer events yesterday a lot. So this will be easy for us, which makes me happy. it means we can just work with the data that we have. And it will likely mean we don't need to look any deeper. So if this was an incoming transfer, why don't we see outgoing transfers here? Good question, huh? Is it? Maybe let's look at the XM transfers window, and what we could say is, for example, let's see how Akala outgoing transfers are looking like. So for example, yes, this is what I'm expecting. The biggest volume you usually have in both ecosystems is between Akala and Moonbeam, because it's sort of two of the biggest and most historic chains. They have very established relationships. So from Akala to Polkadot to Moonbeam. So, okay, here we have a call. Yes, of course. So the reason why it is not, why we don't have an outgoing transfer here is because if you send it directly from Akala to Moonbeam, there is no extrinsic being executed on Polkadot. There is only an extrinsic being executed on Akala. Then there is, it's sort of the information goes into Polkadot, but it's not really an extrinsic. It's more that the validator is processing incoming and XCM messages from a parachain and maybe emitting a few events and then forwarding it to the other parachain. So we won't be seeing an extrinsic if there is value flowing from one parachain to another. But what could be interesting is to still look at the event that is happening here. So let's see how, okay, this is shown on Akala, but what is happening actually on Polkadot when value is being transferred? And I guess this is just a very lame, yes, para-inherent enter event. No, this is the extrinsic. What's the event? Yeah, it's a candidate was included event. So this doesn't tell us a lot, which is bad because it means we don't have a lot of usable data in this case. We just see para inclusion, candidate included. We basically only get the information that a parachain block was included, which is not ideal. Not ideal. Okay. Do we see anything more? Let's look at all the events and let's see if there's no transfer event from one parachain to another. Yeah, so this is a little bit of a sad thing. So this is, in this regard, XCM is a little bit messy because it doesn't give you any event in this case. There is nothing to observe from the outside that tells you that the balance of the parachain account, the sovereign account, changed. Yeah, I remember that I was coming across a similar problem some time ago. I think, I don't know, it was less than a year ago, but roughly a year ago or half a year ago, I did a Netflows analysis, and I think I stumbled across the same problem. So I think this is actually a dead end. I eventually found a solution, so I can show you the solution. But so what you see is when you have a transfer from Akala to Moonbeam, there's nothing going on here. You just see an event that tells you nothing. So this is sort of a sad thing. You can only measure this really when you're indexing all the chains. So this is one of my big tasks at the moment, is to index all the other chains too. But it's not possible in this way. Okay, so I will tell you what I did last time when I came across this problem. So our goal is to find all net flows of dot between parachains. We have our list of parachains, and now the question is, how can we find all in and outflows of those accounts? We just confirmed on Subscan that we cannot see any relevant event or extrinsic on the relay chain that tells you anything when value is flowing from one parachain to another parachain. And this is sort of one of the most relevant cases. So in this case, if you don't see an event, what can you do? So what I resorted to last time is that I was asking the chain directly, and I will show you one example of how you can do this. So there's actually a little bit of a tedious process, but I think I have a script ready, prepared for us that would help us, because I did something like this last year. Okay, but let's start by looking at how can you actually find this out if there is no event available that would tell you the truth. So, okay, we have Polkadot here, and let's pick, there's the sheet, let's pick an account. So let's pick a color here. And what you can do is you can ask the chain state, and then ask the system what is it, account. System account. So you're asking the chain for the state of an account. And yeah, the typical case, I need Polkadot.js installed. Okay, so let's pick a different tab here. I will use my other browser session. Is there anything that I have to hide? No. Is there anything I have to hide here? No. System account. Oh yeah, maybe there's something I have to hide. Okay, maybe... Okay, this should work. Yeah, this should work. So, okay, I'm going to ask, give me the state of Parachain 2000. And so when you ask the RPC that, it will give you the current state of how much DOT is in that account. And we can compare that with Subscan. So if we go into Akara, yeah, so Parachain 2000, and you see there is 1.573 million DOT. And if you compare it with what you get from the RPC, 1.573 million DOT, right? So sort of, I think the first 10 decimals are, this is decimal point, and then you have 1.573 million DOT, right? So you get the state of the account here on a certain time. Now you can look at a certain block. For example, this block here. Wow, we're lagging behind the finalization. No, not too much, but a little bit. And you can pick any block, so you can pick the block 10 million. And when you have the block 10 million, you can take the hash here. And you can put in the hash here. And then you can pick the state of the block 10 million and see how much DOT was in the account at that point in time. What you actually see is fairly similar. 10,000, no, yeah, about 10,000 DOT more. So it's basically the same situation 6 million blocks ago. So roughly the same amount of DOT. Didn't grow too much. I mean, it could have grown or shrinked and then changed again. And this is something that you have to fetch. So one possibility, what you can do is you get the hash for certain blocks and then repeatedly ask the RPC to give you the state. So now we can do this. We only have one problem when we do this. It will take a lot of time, so it will be a very boring live stream. So now we can think about what we're going to do here. If this is the right thing to continue, or if we want to look at something different. Would be nice to have some of your comments here. So let me see how many people we have. We have 3 people in chat right now. Let me know what you think so far. If you have any preference on how we are going to continue this. I'm also going to think for a second. Having the Netflows between parachains would be very interesting. maybe I should run this through my own tool. Maybe I should run this through Polkalytics and grab all of the historic balance changes. Because in the meantime, I have built this in Polkalytics in a much more sophisticated fashion. Just don't know how busy it will keep my system, but we could do this actually. It's not a bad idea to actually do this. Okay. Anyways, it will take some time, and in the case of a parachain that changes a lot of state, it could even take longer than a day. So this is nothing that we would look at today. So maybe what we can think about today is how we can make a bigger master plan, and then I let the machine run a little bit in the background, and then we come back 2 days later and see what it did. So we have a list of all the Parachain accounts. Now we have to find all the inflows and outflows for those accounts, and we're going to let the machine do that. Is there something interesting we could still pack into this live show for today? Okay, I'm going to have to reload this window here, but you shouldn't see that. Yeah. What interesting thing could we do? Okay, I'm not seeing any comments here in chat, so I think I have to make this up on my own. And I'm going to look at... No, but I still want to... Hey Megan, good evening. Okay, I'm going to summarize once more what's our status right now, and then we can decide how we're going to continue. So, Megan, you've been at the show yesterday. So the goal for today is to find all net flows of DOT between parachains, make a list of all parachain accounts. So this is 3 steps. The first step is we need a list of all parachains accounts. And you're lucky you missed that part of the show, which was about 10 minutes of me noting down addresses. So we have a list of all the Parachain accounts here, right? So now we pondered a little bit on how can we find all the in and outflows of these accounts. And what we discovered is that you cannot really track it down in Subscan. Why? Because there is no, when you have a XCM transfer from, let's say, Akala to Moonbeam, there is no extrinsic happening on the relay chain. And there isn't really a very sophisticated event happening on the relay chain that gives you any kind of information that this is actually just happening. The balance is changing in the sovereign account, but there is no event that indicates it. So you cannot really grasp it from the events. What you can do is you can ask the RPC for different blocks at different points in time what the balance of the account is. And sort of this is how I approached this in the past. And so this is sort of where I arrived at now is we need to let a program run through all the balance changes and basically capture them. And this is sort of where Polkalytics actually comes in, because it's a machine built exactly for that use case. But this is something that we cannot really show today because it just takes some time. It's just a machine running and taking time. Okay, I see one question. Is there an Austria DOT event meetup? So we had one meetup in December, I think, which was organized by me mostly, but it's because I'm a lazy organizer. It was just we met in a hotel and were drinking cocktails and eating a little bit and talked about Polkadot. But you can reach out to me, maybe if you write me a direct message on Twitter or Telegram. So it's @Ellis_und_Bob. I'm going to write it in chat. And you can write me a direct message on Twitter or Telegram. And then we can arrange something. Okay, Yes, so this is one problem is we can't solve this now. Maybe, okay, so two possibilities. Either we end the live stream now and I make it, I let you decide. So this is whatever you put in chat, this is how we will continue. Either we're going to end the session now, I let the machine run and we continue the live stream sometimes later in the future. Or we do something different, whatever you pick. And you can make a suggestion here if you are interested in something. I will start my machine in the meantime. So this is sort of, I give you a sneak peek in how Polkalytics is actually working under the hood. Maybe this is interesting to you. And then I'm going to end it here. Maybe. So I'm going to instruct Polkalytics now to query the history of all of those accounts. So Polkalytics is running in the Google infrastructure. So for example, these are all sort of like a bunch of virtual machines that are getting triggered. It's always the same web service, and it's performing a job. It's running for a few minutes and then it's stopping. So right now, one workflow that I'm having is to grab the historical events since the very first block until the first 7 million blocks, basically. The first 7 million blocks, the events for the first 7 million blocks, I haven't scraped them yet, and so this is currently a workflow that is running. So there's a master workflow. That's the Kusama one. There's a master workflow that basically triggers a lot of other workflows to scrape events. And so what is a workflow actually? A workflow is sort of a small, maybe long-running program. Oops. Interesting. This doesn't look... Oh no, this is okay. Events. So this is a program that sort of grabs events from this block range to this block range, min block to max block, and then so the workflow triggers the virtual machine, and a small web service program is running, scraping 10,000 blocks, and then reporting back a success or a failure. And the workflow makes sure if there is a failure to restart the process, try it a few times. Usually, sometimes if something on the internet breaks, there is a small failure and you just retry it and it works. And so the workflow orchestrates the scraping of millions of blocks or millions of events. So this is what I do in the background. And so, for example, right now you can see that there is 20 processes running, scraping Polkadot and Kusama at the same time. And I guess, yeah, there are like about 6 virtual machines, 5-6 virtual machines running at the same time, executing this call, and gathering data and putting it in this BigQuery database. So what I can do here is I can scrape some balance changes. And so I can put this task in of scraping it on a chain that is called Polkadot. But I mean, it would also be nice to have a full history. So what I would be doing now is to basically task it to go through all of those blocks and grab all historical balance changes off the chain. But maybe I'm going to wait until actually my scraping is completed, and then I'm going to do this job. So I think I'm going to end the stream here for today. It was nice having you. And we have a rough plan now on how to continue. And the plan is basically scrape all of the events on the chain, then go through all of the historical balance changes, then we get a big table, and then we can continue and analyze those kinds of data. And I would end this chapter here right now. and leave you with that. And with that, I'm going to wish you a good evening. Thanks for tuning in for today, and I'm looking forward to continue this journey with you next time. Thanks for tuning in.